Hello everyone. Here is a brief video describing a way that you can save some time when you're using KiwiSDR and WebSDR radio servers. Software-defined radio has given us all a great capability. We're able to tune around in spectrum, listening from locations just about anywhere, even on the other side of the world. Those receivers can tune in broadcasts, amateur radio, military communications, utilities, all kinds of signals. And with a good antenna, noise-free location, the reception is absolutely fantastic. As good as anything in an old boat anchor radio. And that's all from equipment that's just a little bit larger than a cell phone. One thing does test my patience, however, and it's not the fault of the operators of the sites or the webmaster or my local equipment. It's just that it takes time to wait for a site to render in my browser, and then after the site is rendered, begin entering information to set frequencies, modes, filters, etc. Wouldn't it be great if there was a way to more rapidly program the SDR servers and start receiving sooner? Well, it is possible. In fact, you can send configuration information in the URL when you load one of these sites in your browser. If you ever save links from the KiwiSDR sites, you'll notice that the frequency, zoom, filter settings are in there. And you can save those in your own list, program them, click once, and have those sites load up. So I'll show you something. Here's skywavelinux.com. On that site, I have a list that I've been maintaining for a while now of the best SDR sites out there on the internet. These are the ones that have the lowest noise and grunge in their locations. They're using good antennas. The web servers tend to be pretty fast, which means they have good internet bandwidth, good equipment. So basically the user experience is best when using these. I started simply putting in the URLs for the sites and nothing else. As I became more familiar with sending parameters in the URL to tune these things, well, then I started adding frequencies, modes for my own favorite frequencies, things to listen to out there. I would put in 198 kilohertz for BBC Radio 4 for some of these listed servers in Europe. In the US, I would put in military communication frequencies. I think in Canada, I might have plugged in some volmit frequencies. So you get the idea. These things had configuration parameters that suited me, but not necessarily the other users of these pages. And a lot of people do come in here to pull links and tune around. So I was thinking about that and came up with an idea for rewriting this page so that it works as a dynamic list. And that's what it is now. So this is up on skywavelinux.com. ab9il.net has a similar page. And when you first load it, you'll notice that the URLs have parameters setting the frequency to 10 megahertz, AM mode, and filters plus minus 4 kilohertz, which is okay for a default, but where this really shines is if you use the form. Anyone can come up on the page and load a frequency, say 5505, upper sideband. Well, that's a volmit frequency for Shannon volmit over in Europe. So you don't have to take whatever I had put in there hard-coded before. You simply plug in the frequency you want, the mode and click enter. The page will reload, and when it reloads, these URLs are coming up no longer set to 10 megahertz, they're set to 5505, which was entered in this window. So notice as I hover over these many links to KiwiSDR sites that it's 5505. There is a filter setting, passing frequencies from 200 hertz up to 3000 hertz above the carrier, so that's good for voice communications on sideband. Some of the operators had set the default passband a bit more on the narrow side. To me, it sounded rather grungy and yellowy, which I didn't like very much. So I've made a wider passband the default. These WebSDR sites use different software, but you can still set a frequency in the URL and a mode. These do not set filter passbands, not yet. And they also receive on different frequencies. These are not continuous from basically 0 through 32 megahertz as are these Kiwi SDRs. These WebSDRs work on more narrow ranges, specific bands that are set up by the operator. Most of them cover the amateur radio bands. A fair number, as you see here, will also cover the medium wave broadcast frequencies and some measure of shortwave broadcast spectrum. But they work the same. Enter a frequency, enter a mode, click enter, and these will load. If the frequency that you've entered is not one that a particular server can provide, it simply goes to the default that the server operator has set up on their end. So let's try something. What did I do? I had 5505 plugged in. Let's try listening from the Echo India 2 Hotel Hotel KiwiSDR in South Kilkenny, Ireland. Now remember, instead of clicking on the base URL for the server, waiting for it to load, and then fiddling with the interface to program it, we've plugged the parameters in right away through the URL. And the moment the server gets the request from this browser, it starts working on it. And as it loads up, it comes up on frequency, in mode, and with a reasonable bandpass. There is Shannon Volman, my favorite robot voice in the world. She's got everything on Siri and Alexa. Tell me some numbers, babe. So there it is. Now, suppose as a listener who's interested in making recordings or listening without static, or maybe an open source intelligence analyst who doesn't want to deal with the noise and really wants to optimize its reception, this is one server. We can go to other servers and try to find what works best. Let's go to the UK. Let's try London. This is another very nice KiwiSDR site. I call it the Motaz SDR. I think it's Mike 0 Tango Alpha Zulu. But when I see that, I see Motaz, not less Taz. Motaz. It renders pretty quickly. There's a very cute picture of a cat sleeping on a radio. If you find yourself in a bad mood, bring up the Motaz SDR and enjoy a cute picture before you tune around. It can turn around your day. So we'll get rid of Echo India 2 Hotel Hotel.
and 0900.
This receiver site in London is getting a very good signal.
7 knots. Visibility 10 kilometers or more. No significant weather. Cloud 2 at 1,000.
Now, notice what I'm demonstrating to you. This is a technique for finding the best SDR site for a particular signal. Sometimes I'm tuning around, listening to military communications or aeronautical signals being transmitted out over the ocean. Sometimes I'm listening around in the amateur bands, trying to get good reception on a jammer or perhaps a net that's being jammed. This is the way I do it. And really, it's a pain in the neck to load up an SDR site and then manually plug in frequencies. Let's try listening from Austria. So instead of going through the repeated process of fiddling around with the interface, hoping for the best, preload the information, and you still hope for the best, but you have to wait. These things do not load very quickly because the servers are not high-powered servers. These are single-board computers mostly. It takes them a while to send the data. Okay, so from Austria we're receiving, but it's a noisy signal. What else? Who else might have a good signal? I tried Carlo, Ireland earlier, but Carlo was not coming up quickly. It had timed out on me, so we'll see if it's working well now. And Iceland sometimes is receiving that vomit well. So multiple tabs on the same station. It's not really a big deal. Just pick whichever one is giving you the best signal. One thing that is a no-no is loading multiple tabs on the same server. The operators don't like that at all. It really loads down their equipment. Okay, so there's a signal from Iceland. And Emerald SDR is still not loading up. I'm just going to kill the tab. Now there have been some improvements to the KiwiSDR interface. This is something I did not see yesterday. There is a color scale, a palette on there, which will show the distribution of colors according to the signal strength. So this changes from site to site. Each one of these SDRs has different gain, different effectiveness of the antenna, so the noise level is going to vary. It is necessary when you start listening to work with the waterfall minimum and maximums. So I'm trying to come up with something that's a little bit less peppery looking. You want the peaks to have some yellow, not much red unless it's a strong signal. And my personal preference for the lower limit of the waterfall is to make the background dark. So there it is. Plus 20 and 0. Seems to work. Not bad. Shannon Volman is putting a good signal into Iceland. Let's try something else. Let's go to 198 kilohertz. Upper sideband mode. Let's try something a little different. This is BBC Radio 4 Longwave. WebSDR Bedford, UK. I have forgotten exactly which one of those covers medium wave and which ones don't. But let's give it a try. This one seems to be a bit sparse on functionality. It says it's being used by some number of users, shows a question mark. That probably means the variable is unset. Alright, there's 5505. I clicked a bit too fast on the list because we are looking for 198 upper sideband. Click enter. I didn't follow my own instructions. Click enter, right? Wait for the page to reload and then come down and listen. Let's try Bedford, UK. Barney's WebSDR. Can it receive a signal on 198? Alright, you can see that 198 kilohertz is set. And there is some audio. It sounds pretty good. Let's go max in on the display. The mode is upper sideband. The passband is not set by the list because I don't have a way yet to program this through the URL on WebSDR sites. So for broadcast, it's entirely possible and advisable to increase the passband just a bit. It works. Let's try another one. Let's go to Grimsby, UK. This WebSDR is located in Grimsby, England, operated by Matt. Big thanks to Barney for helping me get this site up and running. If you have comments, send a comment to Matt at this address. Tell him that he's famous. He's on YouTube because I think his WebSDR site is fabulous, and I'm using it as part of a demonstration for the quick tune list. Now, notice that the tone of the voice is a little bit different. The frequency is a bit different. The clock frequency of this radio is a bit different than the clock frequency at the other site. So they do vary a bit from site to site. You see more of this on the WebSDRs than on the Kiwi sites because the Kiwi sites are GPS disciplined. The users of these WebSDR sites, I shouldn't say the users, the actual operators need to do a few more things to put their radios precisely on frequency. There are ways to do it. It's a matter of precisely setting the clocks, the internal computer clocks on these. This person hasn't done it. But you can see here that, again, we're on 198. This one came up on 198.05. Max in. Now notice that we did send 198 upper sideband in the URL, but the computer made a change. Let's see what we get for 198.00. Alright, sounds a bit different. The tone still sounds a bit funky, but there it is. It works. What else? How about 3885? Let's make it 3885 AM mode. We'll go to the United States and listen around from Pennsylvania. The K3 Fox Echo Fox WebSDR. In fact, this one defaults to either 3880 or 3885 because the operator likes to run AM on 75 meters. The page is partially loaded at this point. I did it again. I clicked too fast. Notice that it's trying to bring this SDR up on 198 upper sideband. That's not going to work over here. 3885. Click enter. Wait for the page to load. And then, after that, click on a link to a server. Now the URL indicates that we're programming this thing for 3885 kilohertz AM mode. Again, the whole purpose of the quick tune list is to save time, and that you lose enough time waiting for these sites to render on the screen in the browser. The last thing you want to do is wait for the site to render and then go into the interface trying to enter in a frequency. Still loading, still loading. Any day now. Any day. I only complain in jest because it's nice of the operator to put this site up on the net so that I can tune from my location over to that location and listen to amateur radio signals or broadcast signals. They're using quite a bit of internet bandwidth to run these things. I know a lot of listeners use K3FEF site. AMers listen. They listen to themselves when they're on the air. There are others who are far away who listen. And there are still others who don't like the AM stuff at all. They'll listen to broadcast, shortwave, CW, whatever other stuff is on there. So we're still waiting for this thing to render. Multi-100 megabit internet service here doesn't mean a thing when the internet is being choked. Okay, so there's nothing on the AM frequencies. Notice that this one starts down where 3280 or so. So there are some aviation frequencies, there's amateur radio, and we go all the way up to 5 where there are some broadcasters up there. Let's zoom out a bit more. I believe K3FEF is using multiple RTL dongles for this particular site. They also run a KiwiSDR at a different URL. So right now we're just using the WebSDR interface to demonstrate the quick tune list. Let's go max in on this rather strong signal. Who is that? That's WWCR.
I remember sometimes God.
Sounds like a religious broadcaster. I don't know if it's Brother Stare or not. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I need prayer troubles.
You know, that's some other scruffy voiced preacher that's on there. Let's try 5850 5850 AM mode. Speaking of Brother Stare, let's try to find the best server for Brother Stare. So, loaded it, clicked it. Let's look at these URLs on the links. They have changed. They now indicate 5850 and the AM bandwidth. Let's try from Indiana. Move down the list just a bit. Edinburgh, Indiana. We'll wait for the page to load. This site has good antennas and some filters. So the reception is really good in the medium wave and lower part of the shortwave spectrum.
prospect, and you've been 95% accurate, and you've never done me wrong, because God works through you.
I'm not sure who that is. This is usually the time when Brother Stare is on,
I love your prophet.
telling us all about the fact that this is the last generation and we're in the end times. He's been saying that for at least 30 years.
Brother Herman,
Oh, there he is. That is Brother Stare.
this last time within a month after I came out.
So, very good signal into Indiana. Let's check another location. How about listening from Overland Park, Kansas?
I can lay down when I get worn and weary.
To tune it is simply a matter of going to the link and clicking, and it comes up on frequency in the proper mode. What did I do? I killed the wrong tab. Let's try that again. And we'll get rid of the tab from the SDR in Indiana. We'll wait for this one to load from Kansas. So it's very easy to tune around and find the ideal server for a particular signal. This is about as fast as you can do it, really. The URL is already preloaded with the parameters. Click on it. You have to wait for the site to render and for the stream to start running to your browser. It's so easy a caveman can do it. It's so easy that you can do it even if the only words you know are person, woman, man, camera, TV. That's a joke. Look that up on the internet if you don't understand the joke. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. Even that person can use an internet SDR, plug in the frequency mode and hit enter and tune around. So there's the signal from Kansas. It's a bit more noisy than as received in Indiana. But it was easy to switch from one server to another. Not tedious at all, not a pain in the neck. Very easy. And it's a time saver. I think you get the idea that the dynamic SDR list is much better than a simple list of static links. And it's the start. There's no reason that there can't be a browser plugin or a JavaScript app that'll run on a page and take care of all of this in a way that's better than the implementation that I've written in PHP. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope the dynamic SDR list is useful to you out there. Enjoy the airwaves, and I'll see you again soon in another video.